Hi, Ben from Pubsheds here. Welcome to the first episode of How to Create a Home Bar. During this podcast series, we're going to attempt to guide you through the various stages of creating your own home bar, be it in a basement, conservatory, attic, spare room, garden shed, garage, or any other number of assorted outbuildings or interior rooms. On the show, we will also attempt to answer your questions, so feel free to either ask these as a direct comment to the podcast, or you can email them directly to us at pubsheds@hotmail.com. Episode 1 takes a look at the planning stages of your home bar. So the first thing to consider really is, will it pass planning regulations? Does it need planning in the first place? And this is one of the most commonly asked questions that we get fielded to us, and it's actually one of the most difficult to answer, because in a sense it depends on where you live, not just locally, citywide or county-wise, but also on a country level. So it's well worth checking out your local authority planning portal, or just get in touch with them directly to ensure that your plans for a home bar don't hit that stumbling block from the beginning. Some people also run into difficulties further down the line with their neighbours, making a complaint for could be a whole host of reasons. So trying to be as open and honest with them to keep them on side may be a useful exercise. Some of our home bar creators have invited their neighbours around for drinks once completed, which seems to be a nice touch and certainly helps to keep them on side. For me, the next thing is to consider the theme of your home bar. This really can drive everything, including the physical structure itself, if you're building from scratch, the interior layouts, and the decor as well. So have a think. Do you want it to be sports themed? Have you got a movie theme in mind? Or in our case, for example, we chose a nautical theme. So everything we did from then on was based around trying to recreate the interior of an old ship such as HMS Victory. And that really fed into our whole purchasing, as well as the design and layout of the interior, and the materials that we used for construction as well. This is the time to get the tape measure and pencil and paper out. Really map out your bar, and I know there are lots of apps available as well as computer software that enable you to do that, such as Google SketchUp, which is freeware. Get the dimensions of your bar, get a feel for it as well, pace it out, and make that top-down plan view of it so you know exactly where you want things to be. Now's the time to play around with the location of the bar surface itself, the bar top, and this bit is where your thoughts in advance are going to really come in handy when you actually construct it. Think about the through flow. If you have a door or two doors, how do you want people to go in and out? Do you want them to come up to the bar, have a seat at the bar, or are you going to have a separate table, or maybe the bar and a table? These are all things you can consider in the planning stage. It's much better to get those nailed down early on, as it's a bit more of a headache to shift around the entire bar at a later date. Now clearly budget's going to be quite an early consideration, but it need not be the first consideration. Your plan can always be adjusted to match your budget should you find that you have a slightly more limited budget than you first anticipated. And we have seen some fantastic bars built on budgets. Certainly, for example, using upcycled materials or things like pallets, entire bars constructed out of pallets. So there really are lots of alternatives. It need not be all singing, all dancing, a very expensive home bar. But equally, if you do have that large budget available, then that can also allow a bit more flexibility in terms of the materials you are going to choose to decorate it with. Now, for an outbuilding, or possibly even for an interior room if you're converting that into a home bar, another consideration is electric points. Firstly, the supply in has to be obviously suitable and have enough capacity for things like heating and possibly dehumidifiers and all the other entertainment systems that you want to run as well. So it's well worth consulting with an electrician at this early stage to see if your consumer supply is up to the job. You can also have discussions about where you're going to put your sockets, and where possible, as many as is safe to have installed by your electrician. That's going to be really handy for later on. You can never have too many sockets, provided they fit within the budget of your electrical supply. Where possible, plan for plumbing work as well. And again, check with your local authority for planning regulations regarding this, as some regulations allow for running water but not electricity, and vice versa. So it's well worth checking that. If you can, get yourself a sink plumbed in. That's going to make the washing up that much easier. And some people will even have a toilet attached if it's an outbuilding. But again, well worth checking the planning regulations and the drainage systems around that as well. Plan for security and insurance. If you're building this extra bar or you are converting an existing room, that could also have implications for your household insurance. So again, it's worth checking that first before you embark on your project. Security-wise, you might want to consider a range of options from home consumer alarm systems to CCTV cameras, and you can get some really good wireless IP cameras which will upload any motion detected straight to an app on your phone. Consider investing in a really sturdy door and lock mechanism as well to go with this. And if you do have windows, perhaps consider having some shutters or blinds just to keep the interior out of view from any prying eyes. So I hope we haven't overwhelmed you with worries and concerns from this advice, but these are just a few tips that we've picked up from many years of members contacting us with queries and concerns. So hopefully you can tackle these early on and not come across those same problems further down the line when it might be much more difficult to address them. Thank you so much for joining us in this first episode. And if you have any other suggestions that we haven't covered, then please drop them in the comments and we'll try and feed them into our episode 2. In episode 2, we're going to be looking at the design and construction phases. So purchasing your materials, where's the best place to get them from? And also just some handy tips that we've picked up along the way for constructing our own home bar. So we hope you can join us in episode 2. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell icon to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/pubsheds. Our Facebook Pubsheds page is at facebook.com/groups/pubsheds. Thanks for listening.